Hello again, Steve here, and today I wanted to talk a little bit about the ego and how it's important for us to understand as much as we can about this because it has to do with ourselves, right? Now, if you like what I'm doing, by the way, before I get started here, please go to innergenie.com, innergenie, all one word, and check me out there. You can find my YouTube blogs and so on, old blogs and whatnot. But just so you know, I'm in a different location, so if the sound is not that great, I apologize in advance. I'm just away from my usual setting, so do what I can here. So anyways, this idea came to me as a result of a conversation I was having with somebody recently, and due probably to a bit of language barrier and also definitions. I don't think we completely agreed on where we were going with this, but it had to do with the concept of ego, which, of course, some people in Eastern philosophies and whatnot, like Buddhism and so on, they figure that the ideal is to somehow aspire to transcend the ego. There's kind of get rid of the ego completely as much as possible. Well, completely is completely, of course, but to banish the ego and to reach some sort of nirvana of this oneness, this super ego, or this all one God or whatever. And the other side of it is more along the lines of the original definition of ego, which I believe comes out of Greek, which means basically the I, or the self, like the deep, in a religious sense, it could be the soul, perhaps, or whatever. But my question would be, of course, why try to get rid of the ego? I mean, this is sort of like, spiritual suicide in a way, I would say, because individuality is how we operate in the world, right? So to try to get rid of ego I don't think is very sensible. I think where this comes from is people looking at sort of the dark side of ego, or the dark side of self, which we could just use the word self, I suppose, or I. And, rather than try to get rid of it, how about we try to work as best we can with ourselves and learn about as much about ourselves as we can. Because, as I see it, anyway, there's two ways that we can achieve what we want in life. We can either achieve what we want and win-win, or we can achieve what we want by win-lose, by stealing from others and whatever, and cheating people. And that aspect of ego is what's often talked about in terms of selfishness. Like, selfishness is, you want everything for yourself, but you don't want to give to others. Well, true win-win is, sure, the ego gets satisfied, the self gets satisfied, but in the process nobody gets ripped off, right? Like, the other person is winning as well in the trade, right? As in a free trade. Now, I was reading this, a couple of references I want to make here. One's called, author is Giblin, and he wrote a book, I believe it's called Confidence and Something in Dealing with People. Anyway, you can look up Les Giblin, Giblin. And in there he made this comment that he says that ego hunger, I'm paraphrasing here, but ego hunger is as natural as hunger for food, right? And he says that the body needs food, the ego also, and he puts in brackets as what he means by ego is the unique individuality. It needs respect. So the food for it is respect, approval, and a sense of accomplishment. And he makes the point that, for the body, if we're going to help anybody else, we must make sure that our body is fed. Like, how can we possibly feed indefinitely other people if we're not feeding ourselves? So in the same way, in order for us to sort of transcend this ego, but we don't really transcend it, we must take care of that, satisfy that ego by making sure that it has respect, approval, and a sense of accomplishment. And he makes the point that we are all egoists, and only when this is mostly taken care of, in other words, it's mostly satisfied, that we kind of forget about it. In other words, we seem to forget about ourselves when we take care of ourselves. And this is the case in the old concept that Maslow had, right? Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Once we're dealing with, base privation, whatever, like survival, we're in survival mode, we really got to focus inward on ourselves, in the case of severe cases, on ourselves and nobody else, in a way, right? But once a lot of that is taken care of, we have this hierarchy where we seem to transcend, but we don't actually transcend. And another reference I want to make here is Styxhexenhammer 666. This guy, Tarl Warwick, I believe his name is. The guy is absolutely brilliant. He does a lot of political commentary, and he's bang on so many things in his analysis, and he's an excellent communicator. You can check him out on YouTube. And he also does an occult video almost daily. And this one I listened to, it was talked about super egoism or whatever. It was done recently. It's approximately March 10th, 2019. So you can check out his video that was posted about then. And he talks about how, you know, a lot of these the dervishes and the Buddhists, the Taoists and everything, they tried to transcend ego, to get rid of ego. That was their highest sort of state of nirvana, right? But he talks about, well, hang on a second here. Who's wanting to transcend that? Who wants to get rid of the ego, right? So the monk who's trying to get rid of the ego, you know, the Dalai Lama who says he's got to get rid of the ego, he's saying it. So he's saying it. What's really saying it is his ego. So he makes the point that's an expression of egoism. That's sort of the high level of egoism, is trying to get rid of the ego. So I thought that was very important. So I think we should just, you know, my input here is I've agreed with that. And that was my point to this person I was talking to recently, was that it's not the ego that's bad, unless we're going to say that we are bad. It's whether our approach to it, whether it's win-win, whether our interactions with others and ourselves for that matter is win-win, or it's just everything for myself, the rest of the people and the rest of what matters be damned, right? And this is the case with ourselves too. I mean, sometimes we want to satiate ourselves because we've been injured in the past and so on, and we're doing drugs and stuff. Sure, that it gives us something in the moment, but it's actually not a win-win for us, because we're throwing away our future and creating a lot of illness in our wake, or in our foreground. So anyway, that was my comments on ego. I think basically, if we go back to the definition of sort of the Greek definition of it, which is just I, right? So if we're going to say the ego is bad, we're using that definition. That's like saying I am bad. You know, if you say to yourself, I am bad, well, we can be, our actions can be, but they don't have to be, as long as we focus on win-win. Steve here again, great chatting. If you like what I'm doing, please like, subscribe, and share, and we'll talk again soon.